After watching the stellar parenting of Lehman from the future, and the resulting debate on children's songs, the family tried to figure out who would choose from the pile next. I don't care if Lehman calls it Wolfpack rules or not, we should bring our system back of us taking turns for VID viewing. Magnus spoke up, hoping to get a routine back in place. I agree with Magnus, Robert nodded, it's best we keep to a system, lest the faster of brothers will have the first pick every time. Not that we cannot plan for ourselves, but it would be fair. Lehman shrugged, looking to the pile, too late. Sputtering, Magnus looked to the pile to see Vulkan sifting through it. He looked up, smiling and waving at Magnus. Everyone was taking so long to figure out what to do, so I got up and began to look. He said this with a wide grin. Do not worry. I am picking something at random, to be fair. Lorgar nearby shook his head, knowing the luck of everyone here, you'll most likely pick something that has to do with you in the future. Calling it now. Knowing the shit luck of everyone here, he will pick something emotionally scarring as well. Conrad commented from his throne in his typical sullen voice. It's better for everyone else to go through the trauma of bad parenting, thankfully he would never have to go through that. Vulkan did stop and pull a VID out at random, showing it to the room. There wasn't anything special looking about the VID in question, no runes, no writing, nothing. Just a regular random VID. I believe this one will suffice. Well, Vulkan, hand it over to the Muggos and get comfortable. The Emperor waved off his son, ready for more VID watching. He idly wondered if it was right to keep sitting here and watching vids, but then he remembered that Malkador usually was able to hold down the fort, so whatever. It's not like with her where she would nag him into oblivion and attack him with her powers in another bout of emotional explosion. Now that he thought about it, maybe? No. No, not yet. Maybe? No. He wasn't wrong. Never wrong about that. Muggos Lame took the VID gratefully and began the rites. He's done this particular rite so many times now, it would forever be burned into his mind and cogitators. Perhaps this was the meaning of his life? 188.m42, Nocturne. The VID opened up inside of an apothecarian and from the multiple salamander herald rise emblazoned upon the walls it belonged to the salamanders. It showed a pacing Vulkan without his armor looking in between both directions of the hallway he was in. He would go in one direction, then stop, think and go the other, before he repeated the action. Conrad, called it. Lorgar, are you sure that isn't my line? Conrad, usually it would but take a second. Vulkan looks like he's going mad and he's in an apothecarian. Calling it now, it's going to be emotionally scarring. Vulkan, please no. Choosing between staying by his wife's side or his son's, was one of the more difficult choices he had to make. Obviously, his wife just went through her third time giving birth to one of their children, but she had their two older children by her side. No one was with his youngest. Vulkan, oh no. Please don't let the little one be hurt. Conrad, well dash. Emperor, Conrad. Conrad, crosses arms and sits back fine. Vulkan, Mortarion. What are some of the reasons why a baby would be taken from their mother? Mortarion, a variety of reasons. Usually it's for the first checkup and making sure everything is fine. The child is given back to the mother within the hour. Vulkan, what else? Robot, I did not know you knew how to take care of newborns. Mortarion. Mortarion, I fucking hate babies. Dealing with them is the bane of my existence. I was born with the knowledge and since I am an apothecary, I have to know a lot about it. But yes, there are other reasons why the child will be taken from the mother. And it isn't pretty. Vulkan takes a deep breath and watches the screen with rising worry, hoping for the best. Vulkan had left his wife's side, finding the neonatal care unit of the apothecarian where they took his too early, too small, too frail son. The first two were able to immediately be given to their mother, already in her arms and able to be cared for from the get-go. Red-cheeked, healthy babies. So why was his youngest so early? So small? So frail? Perrin and Venus had been easy, healthy, strong, on time. He was born just barely after 23 weeks. Mortarion, he's dead. Vulkan, but it says that he is in care dash. Mortarion, he won't make it through the night. Vulkan, no. He will. Mortarion, fine. Don't accept it from me. Listen to everyone on the screen tell you it's going to die. What difference does it make? Make a new one and snap this one's neck as mercy. Vulkan, what? How could you say such a thing? I will not give up on the little one just because you have so little love and care in your heart. Or did your adoptive father suck it all away from you? Mortarion slowly turns to Vulkan, what did you just say? Vulkan, you heard me, brother. You are cold. Mortarion looks back at the screen, blame father. He made me. Conrad, I think this viewing is going along wonderfully. Emperor, fucking hell. He was worried over his youngest. It was quick work to find where they kept him, where they kept his son, but it was another playing field to see him. The apothecaries told their primarch, flat out, that no, he could not be with him right now. So he watched through the glass, watched as he saw his youngest be put into an incubator, watched as he was fed tubes, attached to monitoring equipment. And not for the first time did he wonder if this was the right thing to do. During the earliest check UPS, they were warned that the tests were coming back strange, that something was different and wrong this time. Farther into the process, there were worrying reports. Then when his son decided it was time, did Vulkan's worry reach its tipping point? He was so small, he was dwarfed in his incubator, smaller than any of his elder children. Just barely over 1.5 pounds. He could fit in the palm of one of his hands. Mortarion, what else do you need to see? He's too small, he apparently needs breathing and feeding tubes, and now he's beyond underweight. And you call me the cruel one? Vulkan, he's being given a fighting chance. Mortarion, more like you are prolonging suffering under the guise of love. Mark my words. The apothecary will recommend you let him die. Vulkan was so deep in worry and thought, that he barely registered when an apothecary came to him, waiting to speak to him. He wanted to keep watching over his son, watching over his boy through the glass. Mortarion, 100 thrones, says the apothecary, suggests putting the child down. Vulkan, don't you dare take bets on that. You aren't too far away for me to break your back. Sanguinius, Vulkan, calm down. It's a delicate situation and dash. Conrad, 50 thrones, says that Vulkan gives the kid a chance. Horus, are you fucking kidding me? Perturabo, 200, says that the child is deformed. Sanguinius, what is wrong with all of you? Vulkan, this is my child. How could you all be taking bets on how much he will suffer? Mortarion, calm down. He's not born here. And besides, who knows how many of your own sons did you grant a mercy killing before? Or do I have to mention the pyromania? Horus, enough. I expect better from all of you, father expects better from all of you. All of us. Are we really so sociopathic that we are having fun at the expense of a child's life who is also our nephew? We are better than this. Beyond better than this. Vulkan's questionable morality aside, all of you need to shut up and drop it. Rogel, do I get to hit Perturabo for being a terrible person? Horus, yes. Emperor, yes. Rogel, smacks Perturabo. There is much to speak about, my primarch. Chief Apothecary Harath Shen began, knowing that this was going to be a very difficult conversation. He had been the same apothecary who monitored the process of Perrin and Venus, their growth, and how they changed over time. He monitored the process of the youngest and was the same who told his primarch of the possible difficulties. Speak then, my son, Vulkan spoke in a worried tone, his eyes glued to the window leading to the neonatal care ward. It is difficult, sire. The apothecary treaded carefully. He was born very prematurely, as you know, and with structural alterations. Most brothers slowly turned to Mortarion. Mortarion, he's a mutant. Corvus, sighs. Sanguinius, trails off uncomfortably. Vulkan, what? Sanguinius, nothing. Vulkan turned to his son now, the worry evident on his face. What do you mean? The apothecary sighed. He is different, my lord. His body is. Say it so that I can understand it, my son, I shall not be angry. Vulkan encouraged the hesitating apothecary. He is a mutant, my lord. Vulkan's red eyes went blank. Withdrawing into himself. So much was hidden in those depths, emotions he couldn't place. Just the resounding question of why. I see, he spoke silently. How bad? Enough that I recommend giving him the Emperor's mercy. The apothecary spoke plainly, forcing the words out and hoping his primarch would make the right decision. And if that decision just so happened to agree with him, he would feel not a shred of pleasure. Mort Arian looks over, raising an eyebrow and pointing with one hand at the screen. Vulkan, are you happy, brother? Mort Arian, not exactly. Vulkan, but you're right. Surely you'd be beyond happy to know that. Mort Arian, I do not like my knowledge and profession to be insulted, yes. But am I happy about putting down an innocent child? Even if it's a mutant? No. Vulkan's first thought was to deny this. He didn't fight every day in this galaxy to allow his own child to not have the chance to live. My lord, it is highly unlikely that he will even make it through the night as he is. He spoke sense. But he knew he couldn't make such a decision by himself, his wife deserved to be a part of this. This was their son, not just his. I need time to think. The apothecary bowed his head in respect as his sire left without another word. Releasing his breath the moment Vulkan walked out of the room. Contrary to the apothecary's beliefs, however, the babe did make it through the night. Mort Arian, must have gotten some of Vulkan's healing capabilities. Vulkan, so there is a chance. Then through the weekend. Then the week. Then the month. Vulkan, where am I? Why did I leave? Robot, Vulkan, calm down. I'm sure you were there with him, it's just skipping. You would be there for him, wouldn't you? Vulkan, why, yes. Yes, I would. Jagatai, then you would know that your future self would be there as well. Vulkan, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. As he grew, his deformities and mutations only became more obvious. He cried almost constantly lest he was given a mass amount of pain medication, so much that it made his senses practically dull. Putting that many painkillers in a child that size and age would have killed them long ago, thankfully, or in some minds of apothecaries, unfortunately, the genes of the Primarch kept the babe from succumbing to mercy. Operation was considered and dropped so many times it became practically a routine amongst the apothecaries. A plan was thought up of how they could fix him and then immediately dropped when yet another flaw or development threw the plan off the rails completely. Jagatai, so. It seems even our children have a chance to not be correctly formed. Magnus, it seems so. Fulgrim, is it just certain ones of us? Or is the potential there for all of us? Magnus, I don't know, I'm not an expert in this field. Asked Mort Arian. Mort Arian, now what? Jagatai, what are the chances of a prime child experiencing mutations like this? A prime child growing up normally to a prime child growing up with more problems. And everywhere in between. Emperor, did you just call them prime children? Jagatai, well, yes. They are children who come from us, the Primarches. I just thought it was a good title for them since they are half of us. Emperor, I like it. We're using that term for them now. Mort Arian, that makes things easier, but anyway. Theoretically zero. Practically, on a planet so heavily radiated that it turns one's skin black and eyes a pure red especially after multiple births. Much higher. Fulgrim, so is it just home factors, or is it like baselines? Where there is always a chance of mutation. Mort Arian, just like with baselines, deformities and mutations are always going to be a problem, the chances of that is connected to a large list of factors ranging from environment, family history, what the mother ingests during gestation, what the mother experiences during gestation, what kind of genes are given by the father and many more factors. There is no completely safe and healthy way to ensure a completely healthy child, unless you dabble into gene crafting. He waved an arm around the room, as you can see, even we are not perfect. Despite a certain someone trying his best. Robot, so there will always be a chance that a prime child can grow and come out, wrong. Mort Arian, yes. Very wrong. Our genes aren't meant to be mixed with regular baselines, anything could go wrong. Imagine a baseline having our mind but not the biology to keep up. Or their muscles growing at an abnormally fast rate and their bones are unable to keep up, or their mind simply crashes as it isn't capable of comprehending its biology. There are multiple ways a prime child could come out wrong, and so far we have seen 2 examples. And one is a half-breed. It was only a matter of time until we saw a prime child who just happened to have a very unlucky draw. At most half of the genes are coming from someone else, and that's where it gets bad. So to speak. Emperor, yeah, sure. No mixing boys. Totally. Jagatai, right. Magnus, of course. Fulgrim, absolutely. Lion, that would explain a lot. All the while Vulkan retreated to the mountains, completely secluding himself away from everyone. His wife, she wanted the babe gone, given the final mercy, for such pain was not meant for any life. She argued that if they really loved him, they would let him go. What scared Vulkan the most was how he actually stopped to consider if it was right to keep him alive. That maybe it was better to let him go. He thought long and hard about it, about how either option had their blessings and curses. How the babe should have a chance to live, that maybe time could help with his issues. Or how possibly if he would get worse with time and life would be even more unbearable. What was more humane? What was right? What was for the best for him? He came to a conclusion, and Vulkan returned. And he took the babe in his hands, and for the first time since its birth, it stopped crying. As his mutated only red iris eyes looked into Vulkan complete dark red ones. A connection was formed, an unbreakable one possible only between a parent and his offspring. Janan. Vulkan spoke, christening the child and with it, sentencing it to life even as he turned to the apothecaries. He will live. Make him as comfortable as possible. I will not abandon my son. Vulkan, did I make the right choice? Magnus, I don't know. I can't imagine having to sit down and think about whether killing my child would be better than to let it live a life of pain. Horus, Mortarion did bring up a good point though, don't we have to give the final mercy to our own gene sons at times? How is this any different? Sanguinius, he's a baby. One of our own blood. Vulkan, shouldn't he have the chance to live? Mortarion, but isn't it crueler to force that on them? I don't see the boy dash. Vulkan, Janan. Mortarion, rolls eyes Janan. I don't see him having much of a life to look forward to. Is it really better for you to keep him alive? Vulkan, maybe he could grow up and get better? Maybe with time he could overcome the hurdles he was given. You can't see the future. Magnus, maybe. Maybe not. Conrad, definitely not. Horus, why are you so damned negative about it, Conrad? Conrad, because when you start seeing every possible fucking future in everything I would love to see you stay positive. Sanguinius, are you sure it's because of that, or you want to be like that? Conrad, looks at Sanguinius, eye twitching. One of the things I just saw that might happen to the kid is that he gets killed. Another is that he grows up in a life of pain and misery. And another is that he gets turned into mush by something. Most likely an explosion. Sanguinius, and is that everything you see? Or like I said, only the ones you want to see? Conrad, it's all I fucking saw, feather duster. Now fuck off. They aren't always accurate. Janan cooed up at his father, the sound crackly and weak from all of the screaming that the poor boy had done throughout his short life so far. He was impossibly tiny in Vulkan's hand, fitting there in just one. But despite how small he was, how much he went through, Vulkan saw the fire of a fighter inside of his tiny body, a man already developed, the body he was given the only restraint holding him back. And at that moment, Vulkan knew, one day, the boy would be strong. 201.M42, Nocturne, the Drake's Nest. Sanguinius, what? Such a massive time skip. Horus, how come you're always the one to notice that? Sanguinius, because we might be missing out on content. Ferris, I am fairly sure that if it is cut for a good reason. Corvus, and do we really want to sit here and watch years and years of practically nothing? Robert, are you trying to say something? Corvus, why do you immediately think I'm talking about you? Robert, gives a dismissive grunt. A groan sounded in the darkness. Soon after it was followed by the creaking of a bed even as someone huffed. You can do it, the voice was different, far too much of a toothy sound to it than healthy. The noise took a deep breath, the creaking of the bed increased, and suddenly, a dull thud rang out across the room followed by a pained grunt. Not even a second later, the sound of running feet was heard, and the door to the room was flung open, showing what looked like a grown girl, almost a woman, wearing her night clothes. She had short-cropped black hair which matched her pitch-black skin. Her completely red, glowing eyes made her completely stand out in the darkness. Vulkan, she really does look a lot like me. Jagatai, yes, it's almost as if she's your daughter. Vulkan, please, I'm not in the mood for you to treat me like Fulgrim. Fulgrim, wait what? Janan. She called out in worry even as she flipped on the switch, only to gasp in horror. Janan. She cried out again as she rushed over to the figure on the floor covered in blankets, a quiet crying noise coming from beneath them. Leave me. I can get up, Janan underneath the blankets spoke, apparently waving away the figure, who didn't like that one bit as she began collecting away the blankets revealing, a monster. Sanguineous, full on recoil ga. He looks worse than the mutants from Bale. Mort Aryan, worse than I expected. Vulkan, apologize. Now. Sanguineous, I am. Sorry? He's Conrad, don't apologize damn it. Vulkan, accept it, your kid is a mutant. You can't deny that fact. Vulkan, yes. He's a mutant. But I don't have to hear from all of you about it. Robot, now you know how I feel. Lehman, big difference between having a half-breed and having a mutant that looks like his face was struck with a power shovel. Robot, opens mouth and realizes what Lehman just said. Wow Lehman, that was. Jagatai, too far. Lehman, but he is. No use sugarcoating it. Rogel, may I smack Lehman as well, father? Vulkan, no. Let me. Emperor, just calm down boys and watch the vid. Vulkan, he just insulted my son. I should get one really good hit on him for that. Emperor, a good hit from you would probably put him out of action for a while, so no. But I have a feeling you won't need to. His jaw was bent, his back was slightly hunched, his arms were as thin as his bones, his chest, it looked, strange, as if it was far more rigid than it should be. And his legs were, muscular but slightly twisted. Venage. I can get up myself, Janan declared, looking up at Venus with his red-irised eyes. Nonsense. Don't try it, come on, let me help you. She reached down underneath his arms and pulled him up, sitting him down on his bed, much to Janan's protests. She took a breather then, looking over Janan, who besides the obvious mutations and wet cheeks looked fine. Looking pathetic merely sitting there on his bed, his much paler almost grey skin tone setting him even further apart from Venus' own coal black. Brother, why do you do this to yourself? She asked, chiding him lightly as she knelt to lower herself to his level, wiping away the embarrassed tears from his face. He looked up at her, his head tilted slightly due to his hunch. I got a tryh. He spoke, his iron will evident in his tone even as Venus walked over to his window and pulled back the curtains, letting in some of Nocturne's reddish sunlight. I know, but like father always says, you need to learn when to ask for help. Doing everything yourself doesn't make you strong. She gently chided him, almost like a mother would. He gave her a look that screamed defiance, but he said nothing to that. Emperor, it is important that he is given some type of independence. I can understand he would feel trapped and even coddled, even if she is just being a caring sister. Horus, speaking from experience, father. Emperor, perhaps. Vulkan, she is just being a good big sister. Nocturnian women tend to do that a lot. They're very aggressive and protective of their families and siblings. Horus, how aggressive? Vulkan, I'd say on par with Fenrisian women. Lehman, bullshit. Vulkan, I will bet on that Lehman. After I hit you. Lehman, you will lose. On both counts. You know you need to hold on to something to get up. She continued to lecture him as he just stared at her. We didn't spend time forging and installing those railings for you for nothing. I know, White, he said silently, slowly seeing the reason in her voice. I just wanted to get up by Mijal. Like a normal kid. His sister looked at him. You aren't a normal kid, Janan. You have far too much of a brilliant mind for that. And a shith body to go with hith. Corvus, Janan obviously has taken to his situation with heart. Vulkan, thank you for being supportive, brother. Don't let mom hear you say that. Venus quickly reminded him, shaking her head at the comment. Now go and wash up, busy day today, not every day one celebrates turning 13. Vulkan, nodding a yes, the coming of age ceremony. Robot, funny how a lot of planets have that sort of thing. Lehman, some things humans do just end up being a staple. Janan rolled his eyes as if it would make a damn difference. They hoped for years that age would do something for him. As it was, even if he could stand straight he wouldn't even reach half of his older brother Perrin's size. Fina. He drawled out as he stood up, this time using the railings, and hobbled over to his bathroom. Getting dressed and proper hygiene was difficult, to say the least. Taking him close to a standard half hour just to dress and wash his teeth and face along with combing his very long dark hair. He always felt that the longer hair could hide some of his uglier features. He dressed in voluminous dark green robes. 2 sizes too big for him, they helped hide his condition. He looked at himself in the mirror and scowled. Oh, how he hated that face. How he despised all those looks of pity his friends and family gave him. They meant well, of course, but in the end, he was a monster, a freak of nature. Conrad winces. Corvus, something wrong, brother? Conrad, nothing. He had stood in front of this mirror countless times before, wishing for a change, for anything, just to stand a chance at a normal fucking life. He would give anything. He didn't care if he lost his legs or his arms. Just that he could move easier. So that his own mother didn't look at him when she thought he didn't know that she was. So he could make his dad proud. So he could follow Perrin and become a space marine. But no. They rejected him. They all rejected and pitted him, and his life just had to fucking be hell. Angren, kid has fury. I will give him that. Lion, fury can't be all he needs to be a marine, or else he would have been one. Perhaps he can actually show some promise in another way. Or else Vulkan had wasted his time. Mort Arian, it is too late to begin the procedures anyway. Lorgar, he doesn't need to be a marine to find a purpose, anyway. He still has a chance to be something. To find his place in the world. Robot, taking into account the status of the Imperium, we can only hope. His arm shot out, punching and shattering the mirror, sending shards everywhere even as his hand bled. How easy it would be to just lay an arm against the shattered glass, a sharp pull, and hopefully an end. He looked down at the shards in the sink. He looked at one of the bigger ones, taking it in hand. Oh, he could do it. He tried it in the past. Really fucking hard. But his Primarch DNA was strong enough, just strong enough to not make it as easy as this. Vulkan, wait, what? Mort Arian, I could, but I'll stay quiet. Conrad, I won't. Still think it was a good idea to keep him around. Vulkan, has to be restrained by Ferris and Magnus, say that again. Conrad, gladly dash. Emperor, Conrad, no. Sit down and shut up. Imperial decree, no one talks shit about Vulkan's kids. Vulkan, sit down. Vulkan, angrily grumbling, staring down Conrad. Conrad, hisses. If it didn't piss him off so much, he would have laughed. How his Primarch DNA kept him from dying so easily, but was still inert enough to keep him from being like his siblings. Like everyone else. Almost like a personal hell. Oh well. He'll kill himself some other time. Besides, he'd just end up inconveniencing everyone one more time, having to clean up his body. Vulkan, what? No. No, no. No, don't think about yourself like that. He threw the shard in the sink and opened the tap, washing his already completely healed hand. He healed quickly, but not quick enough for him to live through any of the procedures. Entangled organs ingrown with bones. The apothecaries said. An impossible task, they said. Once he was done, he walked out of his room and down the stairs, taking it very slowly, one step at a time as he held onto the rail with his frail arms. Finally getting down, he turned and walked to the kitchen, seeing a pot with some boiling liquid about to boil over, he lunged and turned off the stove, but the liquid continued to bubble up. He quickly took some rags and hobbled over, taking off the pot with a heave of strength. Vulkan, no son. What are you doing? Lorgar, oh no, now Vulkan is doing it. Janan. He heard his sister from the door into the kitchen call out in shock as he attempted to move the pot over to a cool cooker. I can do it, he declared, his voice strained as he moved the pot. Almost, goth ith. Then the pot tipped, sending the liquid pouring as it tipped over the stove, luckily going into its spill drain, the scalding liquid just barely missing Janan. Fuck! The boy exclaimed even as Venus rushed by him and began cleaning up. Fuck! He declared again, more tears coming to his eyes as the pain flooded in. More frustration bubbling over the pain, knowing his mom, his sister, his brother, everyone else could have done that easily, but oh! Not him! Never him! It's sad to see this. Not having the strength to do basic tasks. Must be frustrating. Horus, when did you two come in? Emperor, like you wouldn't believe, boys. I don't believe there are many of you who do know what that is like. Horus, father, hold on, I know this is important but, when did the twins dash? Angren, I fucking do. It's fucking humiliating to not have any power, to be weak and caged and unable to do anything for yourself or others. It's humiliating to have everyone else free to do as they please while you get to sit back like a dog, treated like a dog and you can't do shit to fix it. That's how he feels, mark my words. Horus, oh okay fine. No one cares, the twins just materialized into the room. Whatever. What were you thinking? She began to scold even as she cleaned up the spill. He wanted to answer, but the pain was enormous, making him feel as if claws were grasping at his muscles. So, instead of an explanation, all that came out of his mouth was a mewling cry of pain. Janan? Venus asked, turning around and seeing his muscle spasms, gasping and taking off immediately for her brother's room even as Janan refused to collapse under the assault, hanging onto a nearby countertop even as he grunted, hissed, and violently twitched. Mort Arian leans forward interesting. Vulkan, really? Mort Arian, yes, mostly because even one of us would crumble up into a little ball from that amount of pain. He's been feeling that from birth, which would mean his body has grown accustomed to it. For him to be like this, it must be extreme to even an unimaginable amount of pain that even he would feel it. Almost like Robot's half-breed. But different, somehow. She returned mere seconds later, plunging a hypodermic needle into her brother's arm, causing him to release a sigh as the pain went away with a flood of warmth. You tried going without it too? She asked him gently, taking a disinfectant pad and wiping away the already healed prick. He stayed silent, refusing to answer her. Oh, Janan, don't try it, not with this one. Not a baby, Venaish. Frustration bursting forward, angry that she kept doing everything for him. He was supposed to be strong like her. Not a weak, barely walking corpse of a boy. Janan, I'm not dash. Tryin' to be strong but ish not working. You know the apothecaries said you can't go without the pain drugs, Janan. I don't care. I need to take care of myself. How can you even look at mer? He slurred, more tears coming to his eyes that he desperately attempted to suppress even as his self-loathing increased with the slurring tone of his speech thanks to his bent jaw. Vulkan feels his hearts clench up. Angren, there it is. That's how he feels. Know it. Accept it. Vulkan, I don't like knowing he lives like this. Angren, there isn't anything you can do to fix it. So all you can do is accept it. Fucking shit. He's used to it anyway. Venus let him rant at her, it was better he got it out now and not let it stew over the day. Because I love you, Janan. You're my little brother, and I just want to help you. She answered him sincerely, taking a rag and wiping away at his face, hoping he wouldn't take it the wrong way again. "Don't th," he slurred out, hoping that she would leave him alone and not do the inevitable. "No," and she hugged him, squeezing him tight and letting him cry again. It was worse, every birthday it got worse. And it all started out as a way of motivating him. The apothecaries had promised that every birthday it would only get better. It only got worse. Mortarian, age doesn't mean squat when the mutation is at a cellular level. As was his custom, Janan skipped breakfast, preferring instead to eat some leftovers as he took the power train to the great forges built into Mount Deathfire. His mother's meals were delicious, since she was, after all, the greatest chef on the planet, even with much more meager rations. But well, he never could shake the feeling of her silently judging him when he wasn't looking. Not that it mattered now. He had work to do. He didn't want to stay home and attend the coming-of-age ceremony. He didn't want to be around all the other kids who had brighter, more active futures ahead of them. He didn't want them to rub it in his face. Work was better. Work made sense, work was something he could do. He didn't have to be around the other kids and teens who weren't mutants and had ugly faces and didn't have weird bodies and looked like a failed attempt at life. As the train rode at record speeds towards Mount Deathfire, his thoughts turned to that of his designs. His plans. While his body was essentially pathetic, his mind was anything but. It was sharp, sharper than most. His eyes were able to spot even the tiniest of flaws. And while he couldn't even hold a sword or smithing hammer, he never needed to. He could see and hear the imperfections of an object. There were always his brothers to help him craft his most ingenious of designs, and he could always wield a pen to write and draw on a plastic flimsy, as difficult as that was for his mangled arms. His mind and knowledge were the only part of his father that he was actually able to use to his full ability. "Lorgar, see? He is able to do something, and if what he says is true, he's quite good at it. I'm glad he's able to do something that he enjoys." "Vulkan, I agree. I would love to see some of the designs he comes up with, what he can do if he dedicates his time to it." The train came to a halt, and he hobbled off. His power-armored brothers all around him coming to a halt and greeting him in various ways, all with smiles on their faces. They were all nice to him. It always irked him in the beginning, like they only did it to be polite. He hated politeness. But over time it wasn't just a polite thing to do, it was expected and earned. He had earned his respect, that much he was proud of. As mangled as his body was, his mind served the purpose of overlooking many products from the forges inside this very mountain. All from the improvements to their Terminator designs to the newer and much more efficient power packs, and all the way to their newer, more compact, Thunder Hammer models. Finished off by eliminating the flaw of the Redemptor pattern dreadnought burning out its host. He swore that when he met who had designed the damn thing he would give him a punch to the gut, if he could. All of this made sure that his brothers would keep the Mechanikus from declaring him a heretic. Ferris raises eyebrows. Impressive. Vulkan, most impressive. He has learned much. But is he a master yet? Emperor, hey! Hands off my quips. Ferris, I know that the Mechanicum can be, looks over to Mugoslame, who is grumbling to himself, a little overzealous. And the Mechanikus of the future has only degenerated further. I just hope Janan is careful, since technology development can be quite tricky and the wrong machine spirit can be disastrous. Hobbling through two massive adamantium doors, the heat hit him directly into his face while bathing the rest of his body with unnaturally hot temperatures. Luckily for him, his father's genome was nocturnian enough that he was able to weather the heat with relative ease. One of the rare cases where the genome had not failed him. He walked along, the cane he used tapping heavily against the ornate stone floor. He had refused a wheelchair. He could walk. Or well, hobble. Anything was better than a damn wheelchair. He couldn't even use the stairs then. As he walked across the long hall, all around him, hundreds of his brothers and serfs worked at the forges or anvils. All making some of the best weapons in the entirety of the Imperium. Or what was left of it. His father, Primarch Vulkan of the Salamanders, the Lord of Drakes, had left some time ago. Citing the need to find Imperium Secundus. A probe stating the existence of it having been found a couple of years prior, along with the navigators declaring the light of a new astronomicon being present amongst the stars. Emperor, looks like we will see Vulkan with Robot soon if things go to plan. Rogel, father. Emperor, yes, Rogel. Rogel, Aegidius has already implied and spoken of Vulkan being a part of Imperium Secundus. You are being redundant. Emperor, I am merely saying that we will physically see him soon. Rogel, damn it. Rogel, but father. I speak the obvious plenty of times, yet I am smacked for it. You speak the obvious here. I do not wish for you to be smacked, but it is odd that I am punished for something you have just done. Perturabo, I can smack father. Emperor, fucking try it, boy. See how far you get before I throw a planet at you. Rogel, you mean, throw Perturabo at a planet? If you were to throw a planet at him now while we are on the Bucephalus, you would not only kill everyone the ship but us as well and destroy the Imperial flagship. Emperor, I know what I fucking said. Hope. It was all that kept the dream going. Hope for a better time. Hope for the idea of continued existence. Hope that the grim darkness of the galaxy could possibly have turned. He huffed. Hope. He had kept hope for so many years that its very concept was appalling to him. What was hope other than a false promise? Conrad, he's not wrong. Horace, oh hush already. There is plenty of hope. Like not having a heresy and telling chaos to go die in a latrine ditch. Conrad, and hope there has gone ass up. Your point. Horace, hush. Finally, he reached the throne at the end of the grand hall and carefully climbed the few steps leading to it. The salamanders were essentially all equal here. The military hierarchy coming into rule only upon leaving the planet. But nonetheless, the throne was meant for the great overseer. The last one to judge the weapon of a neophyte during his trials in his coming of a space marine. And right now, that overseer was him. Vulkan, I have no doubt in my mind that he had earned that position by himself. Lorgar, if what he said about his accomplishments and his work are true, then I would agree. Lion, at least he isn't just being a disappointment. Horace, brother. That is no way to speak of Vulkan's son. Lion, it is the true way. No artifice necessary. Horace, sighs. When his father had given him the position upon his leave, Janin was appalled. Great overseer? What? Only a true salamander, a full battle brother of the chapter could hold the position. His father then pointed out that technically, he was one already born into the chapter. Holding most organs and all. But above all, he had the mind of an overseer. Surpassing even the greatest smiths of the chapter in terms of his knowledge of the lore and weapon making, ever retreating to his books whenever he did not know something, or hungrily asking questions. Again, just because his body was dull, it did not mean his mind was as such. And yet again, that is what his father had pointed out to him as he gave him such an honor. His older brother Perrin accompanied their father on his crusade to Imperium Secundus, giving full trust to Janin. As foolish as Janin thought that was, and as much as he complained about it, he accepted. He hobbled by the throne, going into the private workshop behind the throne instead. He thought he was doing an amicable job so far. Or at least, so the other salamanders had let him know. He knew they thought him too rash and hostile at times, but they were too nice to say anything about it. Sanguinius, it is truly astounding of how nice Vulkan's sons really are. Robot, indeed. Perhaps a tad too much even at times. Sanguinius, what do you mean by that? Robot, all I am saying is that at times, compassion can be a weakness. A weakness that can be exploited. I am not saying that them being kind makes them weak by default. Just that it can backfire if it is used too much. Vulkan, I understand and am grateful for the criticism, my brother. It has a good meaning behind it. Do not worry, however, we are careful not to overextend our kindness to our enemies. Robot, not what I meant, but at least you get the gist of it. He sighed yet again as he sat down upon a supportive chair with a grunt of pain, leaning his cane on the work table even as a rare smile graced his lips. Finally, he was able to be at his beloved work table, where he could sit comfortably and draw out plans, designs, redesigns, and make improvements. The tilted surface perfect for him to reach and comfortable enough to work. How many designs had he already made? Too many, he supposed. He gave a huff of laughter at his own weak jest. All around the room and in sealed reliquaries, his many works were scattered. Those that were not weapons or armor often appeared pointless or even useless in the eyes of some. To him, each one was a lesson learned in pain and humility. Ferris, I'd love to get a closer look at his workshop. I see many projects that he just needs a bit of guidance with. Perturabo, it is admirable to see that he really does have a grasp on design. If he wasn't held back by his body, I can see him being a beyond adequate artificer. Vulkan, beyond adequate. Perturabo, time is needed to be an exceptional one. Rogel, smack. Vulkan, he means well. Rogel, perhaps. As his body had made him such, he drew the design first, making sure that each part was thoroughly tested in his mind. Even the smallest servo could err massively upon the smallest miscalculation. And then he had one of his brothers craft it. Today, he started work on a new project. His most ambitious project, the one that he would put his entire mind and soul into, a project that he would make sure would be his greatest creation. Too many birthdays had passed with too many disappointments. Vulkan, what is he making? Ferris, I'm not sure. Nothing written yet, no plans drawn, so not much information yet. Looking around the room briefly, he spotted all of his previous attempts at healing himself. He saw the primitive braces that he attempted to use before he himself realized that most of his bones could never be bent to grow in another way. Then there were all of the molds he tried to mold his body into using various mutagenics and chirurgeons along with his brother apothecaries. Then came the internal modifiers, using a heavily modified black carapace to be able to scrap and mold his nerves a different way at the very least. Mortarian, impressive number of tests. But futile. Fulgrim, I'm getting a lot of Fabius vibes from this. Horus, the part about desperation? I have seen it drive many people to extraordinary lengths in order to achieve their goals. Fulgrim, indeed. But that is not what worries me. What does is that if this does not end well, then poor Janan will be isolated even more. Ferris, work consumes a man in more ways than one. It makes isolation preferable. Perturabo, grunts, the statement hitting a little too close to home. And finally, came the smallest little glass of liquefied fulgurite. Emperor, okay, where did he get that? Horus, from what we have seen of my heresy, wasn't Vulkan stabbed with a slab of it in order for him to regain his sanity? Vulkan, I believe so. Horus, then wouldn't it be logical that Vulkan would keep it since it was so useful? Emperor, good point. Oh, now that one had been a pain. A very expensive pain too. That was all the fulgurite in the known galaxy. Thankfully his father had been able to save what those assassins used on him, leaving this precious substance for himself. Horus, looks smug. Liquefying it had taken years of work with a massive amount of trial and error. Not to mention exploding machinery and decades worth of migraines. Thankfully he was able to take the notes of others and rework it to suit his needs, working through and figuring out how to use it. He had hoped to use in tactical doses to alter his body on a cellular level. Mortarian, an interesting, if difficult attempt. Emperor, no more hums from you, young man. That, combined with your voice and choice of color palette, reminded me way too closely of somebody from the past. Mortarian, You've been oddly quiet this entire time, old man. Go back to being silent. Emperor, holy shit, Mortarian. Your nostalgia tripping me all the way back to the very early 3rd millennium. Mortarian, He had tried with his arm. And it worked. He had been able to use it and actually enjoy having a strong limb that didn't scrunch up and could hold his weight. It had been a dream. Only to revert back to its deformed state in a matter of days. He would either need to dilute the fulgurite in something and keep himself constantly submerged in it, which would be essentially impossible due to there being so little of it. Or concentrate the fulgurite enough that it would last a few years at least. Which was impossible because its own molecular structure prevented him from doing it. Then, once it was all gone, that was it. He couldn't waste it to use and enjoy the effects for only a handful of years. He had to be careful and plan out what he was going to do. Mortarian, sufficient idea. If he did not have the primary material in a finite amount. He sighed and let his head hit the headrest of his specially designed chair. He needed an idea, something to go from and figure out what he was going to do. He needed inspiration. No inspiration, no work, no ideas, nothing new. Anything could be an inspiration if he just thinks about it. Trains? No. Mirror? No. Railings? No. Something, something, something. Even the most mundane item could be used for inspiration, but what? He then thought about it, going back to breakfast this morning. The boiling pot, how it was used to cook things submerged in water. Submerged. Wait, yes. Submerged. He could use that. What else was submerged? Ferris, he isn't. Fulgrim, I think he is. Lion, I mean. It's a good idea. It would fix a lot of problems. Vulkan, oh no. Perturabo, he just needs to make it as perfect as possible, since he only has so much to work with. Lorgar, I want to say that someone should stop him, but... What else? He took out a datapad and linked it to the noosphere, which in turn linked it to the main centralized database. He flicked through his massive amount of files, each labeled with different chemicals before he found the one he was searching for. Amniotic fluid. Ferris, sometimes I hate it when I'm right. Vulkan, has anyone ever wanted to be interred? Ferris, well, there are plenty in my legion. But outside of them, not really. An interesting thing. With an even more interesting chemical mixture. Designed to preserve far better than anything else. The people put into them without so much as a modicum of preparation could easily survive for millennia. Technically, he tried it before. His genome overpowered the fluid and healed him, albeit at a far slower rate, but still. It wasn't practical and took a mass amount in the first place. But if he tweaked it with something that already delayed his healing factor for some time. He quickly did the math in his head and well. 3,654,561 days until the healing even began to manifest. Over 10 millennia. He did the math again. Then again. Then, for the first time in years, he pulled out a cogitator and did the math on it. Then on a flimsy just to be sure. Emperor, ah yes. The old, I'm so nervous right now I don't know what 1 + 1 equals. Lion, that's not a thing. Robot, no, that is a thing. Corvus, it actually is. Lorgar, wait what? Magnus, yeah, it's a thing. Lorgar, how does that happen? Robot, clearly you have never set up an entire logistical network for a crusade. It's a nightmare. Even for me. He felt an unsteady grin spread across his face as he slowly turned to look at the vial of liquidized fulgurite, sitting in its own tiny reliquary. He felt a bubble of laughter come up, then it grew as he laughed louder and louder. It was there. How did he not think of this before? He couldn't stop the laughter from coming out, it was just hilarious. He had a lot of work to do. Vulkan, oh no. Ferris, I recognize a phase like that. He isn't going to stop until circumstances force him to do so. A few months perhaps. 208.M42, Nocturne, Mount Deathfire. Ferris, never mind. Vulkan, and when you say he isn't going to stop, do you mean like when we get so into a project that nothing else comes to mind and we keep working until it is done? Ferris, exactly. Vulkan, oh, no. Perrin marched into the Grand Hall of Forges and allowed the heat to wash over him, the systems of his power armor adjusting as needed even as he took a big whiff of the smell of brimstone, ash, and heated adamantium. Oh, how he had missed home. The smell of travel and battle was comforting, yes, but there was nothing better than the open pits of magma, brimstone, and metalworking. The journey to Imperium Secundus was less than stellar. His father really hadn't been happy with the idea that his uncle made a peace treaty with the Eldar. Hell, he could remember how many raids there have been on Nocturne during his childhood by the damned sweat goblins, since apparently there was a difference between them, the stuck-up ones, the clowns and the smelly ones, and then there were the extremely edgy ones who liked to write poetry about death and wear spikes everywhere. Jagatai, grunts in approval. Magnus, of course there are differences. Most of you just don't want to entertain the idea of learning them. Robot, he looks like he's taking it well, brother. Vulkan, I apologize in advance. Robot, why? Vulkan, just watch. I know my future self. He even carried a scar over his left eye from when one of those damned knife-eared assholes tried to kill him. Emphasis on tried. He ripped the thing's head clean off with his bare hands. He had been 3. Ah, good times. Angren, good kid. Vulkan, I am very proud of him. Jagatai, I would be too. Mort Aryan, better than the other one. Emperor, violent eye twitch. Vulkan, and you ruined it. After traveling for so long and going through or by so many warp storms, they finally came to Makraj and now he had to be nice to the damned knife ears. Even have to accept that he has a half-breed cousin. Spoiled little shit, running away from home and making everyone panic. It made him sick. Robot, wait what? What happened to Ejadias? When? How? Why? Give me answers you damned vid. Conrad, muttering under his breath, just had to mention the damned half-breed just as things got nice and quiet. Robot, why would he try to run away from home? Surely everything is fine, he shouldn't feel the need or want to run away. Magnus, our Robot, please calm down. We are here to watch Vulkan's child. Robot, but what if he was taken and Perrin is just taking it as him running away? Maybe. I'm trying to figure this out and see why he would do this and I can't. Conrad, gah. I swear, if I ever have to deal with someone who talks like you on a daily basis I will gladly flay myself for hours, or take a bolt to the face. Sanguinius, starts grinning at Conrad. Thankfully, he was able to avoid the half-breed but not his other cousins. The little wolf and the little bat. They weren't so bad. They were actually enjoyable. But after getting those reports, it was imperative they returned home for the coming battle. He liked Makraj, but it was soured and he was beyond thankful to be home. Lehman, I know the little wolf is Freya, since well. Space Wolf. I just hope she learned to not run around naked. Conrad, no. Magnus, brother. Whatever is making you say that? Conrad, shut the fuck up, Magnus. Emperor, holy shit Conrad, calm down. Conrad, it's not real. It's not happening. Shut up. Horus, we might be taking the hints in too many broad strokes. Vulkan, I mean. We know Conrad is alive, but maybe it's someone else's. Sanguinius, I don't care. Let's just watch. But despite it all, there was one he had missed even more. Uncle Dorn had even given them a couple of housecarls and an entire company of his imperial fists to help fortify the planet. That was very kind of him. Father made sure to hug his uncle extra hard for that. Uncle Rogel didn't even seem to mind. Perturabo, oh for fuck's sake. You're still alive. Rogel, yay. Existence. I am happy to know that in the future, I am still. Me. Robot, hold on, I'm confused. Rogel hasn't even shown up yet. I know this takes place a few years later from where we left off, but still. Angren, maybe whoever sent this Grox pile of tapes forgot to cut out that part. Ouch. My fucking head. Emperor, too meta. Lorgar, I mean. Are the tapes edited? I know that a couple we watched does have splices. Maybe Omegan, you don't question. Perhaps Alpharius, a magical chest of sorcery. Definitely Omefarius, that spews vids at random. Alpharius, or is it, but are surprised by the fact. Omegan, for sure, that they might be edited. Lorgar, alright, the both of you need to sit down. Immediately he began walking across the grand hall, intent for the workshop behind the throne. As soon as he and his father had landed they had been caught up on any missed events and immediately directed towards where the defenses for the incoming attack were being prepared. The librarians had picked up signs of turmoil from the warp, with images of possible attacks of their home. The star of the thousand suns was burning brightly in hatred for the salamanders, and no one knew why. Magnus, wait, hold on, why are my sons going after Nocturne of all places? No offense, Vulkan. Vulkan, I'm too busy being offended that your sons are going to attack my home while my wife and children are there, you red-skinned asshole. Emperor, holy shit Vulkan, now you're going there. Jagatai, writing something down while nodding approvingly. Magnus, I don't know why they are going to attack Nocturne, Vulkan. I'm just as surprised as you are. I have no idea why they chose you specifically. Robot, perhaps Nocturne is isolated? Therefore making it a target worth pillaging? Vulkan's sons are legendary smiths and artificers. The bounty would be essentially priceless. Magnus, normally I'd agree with you, but you forget. This is a known Legion home world. Even with Imperium Secundus in effect and after the events of everything so far, going after a Legion homeworld while their Primarch is known to be back is absolute suicide. Even if it is for a plan of the squid, this makes no god's damned sense. Vulkan, unless of course a certain book weakened your Legion and whittled it down into chapters. Robot, will you stop harping on that? Lehman, Spay's book says this bad. Robot, sighs, that's a no then. Magnus, will someone address my point? Angren, revenge, you big idiot of a nerd. Magnus, for what? Angren, doesn't fucking matter does it? That's the only thing which gets future you to reunite with your sons and attack everything. As evidenced by your trying to destroy Rus wolves twice by attacking their home world. Lehman, and getting your spine broken yet again. Magnus, okay fine. Revenge. But I really want to know what it is that Vulkan did to cause my sons to seek revenge on him. If it even is revenge. Angren, if it fucking isn't, I will cave in my own head by ripping these nails clean off. But perhaps even more worrying than the reports of the possible assault were the reports of his younger brother. He had not left his private workshop in years. Even eating and sleeping in it, coming out only to do his duty as great overseer. Vulkan, Emperor, not you too. As for Perrin, well, he hadn't seen his brother in 8 years. Talk about a long time of not seeing your little brother. He was tempted to see his mother and sister but thought it prudent to see Janan first and inform them after. Better to go in with some ammo than without. From what he had heard from the apothecaries, he was growing as well as he could be, despite him staying for the most part in his deformed body. Nodding to his battle brothers and passing the countless serfs in the middle of their work, he marched past the throne and into the workshop behind, the smell of unwashed hair and skin reaching his transhuman senses. It was going to be one of those days, wasn't it? Hello, baby brother. Perrin grinned as he made his way into the workshop, causing a groaning Janan to shift in his work table. It's been 8 years, and almost as long as that from how long you've been away from home too. Janan let out a huff, scribbling something on his work table. 8 years? Ah can sh really rememberth. Ishn't it 206? Ferris, well then, he went deep. Vulkan, I have done the same. Ferris, we both have. No, more of 208. Honestly, have you really been in here for so long you forgot the year? Perrin corrected, looking around at the workroom. The walls were covered in designs, diagrams, notes, all manners of written pieces that seemed to go together. Perhaps? You know, home actually has a bed. A bed. Janan pointed his pen towards a makeshift bed that was unkempt and looked like a place he could flop over on and off of. Right. And the food? Venaish brings me food, Janan replied, continuing to work. At this point, Perrin had enough. He could see just fine in this light, but the darkness was getting annoying. All right. That's it. I'm opening the curtains. Emperor, oh. Here it comes. Perrin no. Perrin yes. And then, he reached for the curtain, moving to reveal the bright light of the lava flows, making his younger brother screech at the light. Fulgrim, sounds like the time I opened the curtains on Conrad. He made the same sound. Conrad, hissing. Brij. Brij. Janan fell from his chair to escape the light. Come now, it's not so bad. A little light won't kill you, brother. Gentle brother. Be gentle dash. Perrin simply continued to open the curtains, one by one and continue to cause his brother to screech at him from the horrible bright light. Fulgrim, yup. Exactly like Conrad. You've betrayed me, brother. Janan muttered from the floor, using his robes to cover his head from the terrible light. Perrin only chuckled at him. You've so mean. Mean? I'd do this for any other brother. Perrin answered, standing over his brother. Now come on, stand up. I know you can. A little light isn't killing you, so don't even try to complain. Lion, now that's better. Can't stand the idea of anyone coddling him. Vulkan, as much as I do not like your tone, brother, I agree that it is best for the situation. Janan humphed at his brother, sitting up with great difficulty. Shaposh, you're right. He sat up with great difficulty, making sure to pick up little things that had fallen with him. Ish good to see you, brother. Perrin removed the part of his brother's robe that covered his head, revealing the pale skin and two long hair that obscured his brother's face. Now, it's good to see you. A little light would go a long way to making you look and feel better, brother. Sanguinius, time has not been good to him. Vulkan glares at Sanguinius. Sanguinius, shutting up. Now white youth are being mean. Janan moved back to his chair, going back to his work and having to rub at his eyes. The extra light was making his pupils contract, his vision would have to adjust before he could continue. Buth ish good youth are hairy. Oh? How so? Do you need me to deliver news? Maybe tell Mother and Venus you're not dead? Be your scapegoat. Perrin jested, chuckling at the idea. Turn around. Pardon. Janan turned around in his seat, the seat swiveling in place. Turn around and witness my greatest creation. He proclaimed with his arms wide open as if unveiling a masterwork. Perrin turned around, only seeing the massive wall, the fallen curtains over something big and... Oh! You killed the canid again. Vulkan, do not kill the canid. They are meant for companionship and love. Leman, I agree. But wolves are better. Emperor, canids came from wolves, Leman. Leman, I know tha. Jews sayin' all like wolves. A sputtering behind him. No. Didn't kill da canid. Said family canid, was currently on the floor submerged in a type of glass container, full of a bluish, clear, fluid floating aimlessly. There were tubes connected to the bubble-like container, leading to another container to the side. Hesh fine, just a little. Sleepy. How long has he been sleeping for, then? A year? Nosh impotan. He waved to the curtains, da canid wash only the tesh. Yuf wood hash sheeneth if you hadn't meshed wish my curtainsh. Sanguinius, actually, can we go back to the canid? Horus, I don't think we will. Conrad, don't count on it. Right. Perrin moved to remove the curtain, revealing the massive creation, and the notes suddenly began to make sense. All of it was connected to the main idea written on the wall, the diagrams, everything was connected. What? What did you do? I made a new body. In front of them, towering even far above Perrin, was the unmistakable form of a massive dreadnought. But, it was different. Big even for its type. Looks like you based it on a Redemptor. Perrin murmured as he approached to admire the handiwork better. Ferris, holy, that is the biggest dreadnought. Lorgar, well, he went for it. Angren, looks more like a knight. Vulkan, not tall enough, but much bigger still. And more elegant. Fulgrim, a masterwork. Better than the Redemptor. Burn shouth to Kaishli, I may dayeth better. It ish the best dreadnash in the entire Imperium. Janan quickly answered, pointing out parts of the design that he improved and parts that he changed out. Ferris, I don't think he's overestimating that. Heavily modified amniotic sarcophagus with a lot of neural implants, different fusion see your fusion reactor. Perrin ran his armored hands along the intricately designed fingers of the dreadnought, no bigger than his own power-armored ones. Intricately modulated fingers with fully movable joints, and, that's why you need the extra sensor nodes for, you can feel. He turned to see his smiling brother. You added a damned black carapace, I don't even want to know how long that took. Mortarian, what, a full neural interface at that level. Ferris, that is one, very beautiful dreadnought. Perturabo, merely nodding along. Vulkan, I. I am so proud of him. Janan shrugged, a loss of time. I'm more apprud osh the fluid. That's where Ida canid komesh in. Sanguineous, he's going to let it out, right? Ah, our father's son et. Janan asked in a joking tone as he spotted the absolutely massive attachable power fists that hung to each side of the dreadnought. With a built-in heavy flamer end, is that Volkite? Where by all the drakes did you get that? Vulkan, where did you get that, boy? Answer your brother. He at least had the sense to look embarrassed at this. Ah. I might have a taken ish from father's collection. Vulkan, deep breath as long as it will be used properly. Conrad, you look pretty mad. Are you mad, Vulkan? Vulkan, I am not mad, I just wished he asked. Robot, to be fair. You were essentially unreachable. Of course. Perrin sighed, deciding to deal with that later. Tell me more about the fluid, what makes it so different? The fool Guite. He spoke it so simply, like it was obvious. At least you asked father before about dha wait what? He whipped his head around to his brother, who didn't look the least bit sorry about swiping something that important and valuable. You merged the liquidized fulgurite with the amniotic fluid? Why and how long did that take? Mort Aryan, holy shit, what? Thith washed a longish part. Shank you canid. The canid responded by floating aimlessly in the bubble of fluid, ishwash a stroke of genius. Da fulguite stops the healing end, he pointed to the canid again, made a little hole on his leg. Monchigo. Still hasn't healed. Shori canid. Again, the canid responded by floating there, essentially frozen in time. Vulkan, leave the canid alone. Janan. Do you actually intend to put yourself in that? A willing intumant. Janan nodded as he took a sealed bottle and began to drink from it in front of Perrin, who sniffed the air and made him recoil slightly. Are you drinking the amniotic fluid? Yush. Why? Ahm get I ready. If my body is ushed to it, I can imtum a lot easier. He shrugged, I won't even need to sleep. Thank share to the fluid drink I and my genomite, ish possible. On wily the canid schleps, cause a of my genome I want. On proven. Shanks canid. He continued to float there. Perrin looks at the canid, then leaned towards his brother. I think it's dead. Vulkan, it better not. But if what Janan says is true, then I am glad he has made something worthwhile to help him. Emperor, theoretically. Taking the perpetual genome into that context. He just might have. No Ishnath. Look. He turned around and pressed a rune on the control panel for the bubble, watching as how the fluid was drained from the canid's bubble and into a separate container. Quickly, the canid sat up and backed away silently from the bubble, looking as new and healthy as before. Hesh fine. Vulkan, good. Conrad, why are you so concerned about a stupid canid? Emperor, I'm just going to stop you right there, and just say that canids have always been man's best friend. For our entire existence. There will be no canid disrespect in this house, young man. Rogel, father. We are in the Bucephalus dash. Emperor, damn it Rogel dash. Rogel, and not a house. Perrin wondered how long the canid had actually been in there. Perrin began, stuttering before he looked back towards the massive dreadnought. It was extremely well made, he had to confess, especially now that he looked at the legs and saw that Janan had also managed to somehow upgrade those. Are you sure? Are you really sure, Janan? We can always have the apothecaries try more dash. No. Janan shouted immediately, Avi had enough. His face suddenly skewed with rage as he just imagined what Perrin said, more waiting and more time and more pain and more. 2 decades. 2. I don't want to waish any more. I am gonna fisheth myself. I am done awaiting. Robot, wow, that came out of nowhere. Angren, really? Fucking really? If you think this came out of nowhere, you're even denser than I remember. The fucking kid has been given a shit hand in a shit life. Maybe if you came down from your high riding and mighty chair you'd actually understand how he feels, you blueberry fucking muffin. Jagatai, Angren is right. But considering Robut's current worry with Aegidius on his mind, I'm not surprised that he let it slip past. Angren, even you're on my side. Jagatai, of course that doesn't excuse the mass amount of self-pity spewing from you like Grok's manure at the moment. Emperor, no comment. Perrin held up his hands in defense, knowing how his brother felt in a way. He waited and toiled for 2 decades, now he finally had the chance to escape his cursed body. Could he really blame him for choosing something that others considered a curse? I can't be the one to give you my blessing to go forth with this Janan. Perrin reminded his brother in a gentle tone. Only father can. Janan calmed down slowly, deep angry breaths through his nose, almost like a simmering grox held in place forcefully. No white. No white. Ahm Shori. Perrin reached out and hugged Janan to him, being very careful not to crush his brother's head on his armored chest. There is nothing to forgive, baby brother. He spoke even as he thought about how they were going to explain this one to their father. His youngest child was always on Vulkan's mind. He was so weak, fragile, needing more attention than a regular child. From being born small, to his bones mutating, to everything about Janan being Janan. So when Vulkan was summoned by his youngest, he immediately left to meet with him. It wasn't every day that he could be there for Janan, and it had been 8 years since he was home. Just seeing his beloved wife, Kai, was already enough to welcome him home properly. With how urgent Janan sounded, along with Perrin imploring him to go, it must be important. Striding into the Great Hall of Forges in Mount Deathfire was truly his coming home. He had spent more time here on Nocturne than anywhere else, crafting the finest and deadliest of weapons. And so had apparently his youngest. Venus had explained to him about how he hadn't even come home in years. What was he thinking? Did he think that his mother did not love him so much? Quickly walking across the hall in his massive Terminator armor and ignoring most of the greetings given to him by his Gene sons, he walked directly for the elevated throne, seeing Perrin standing there, no doubt waiting for him. Ah, Perrin! He was so proud of him. Born with most of the organs, he only had a little amount of indoctrination to go through, along with the surgeries passing quickly. His skill on the battlefield was quickly on the rise. Even if he was just an average-sized marine, his reaction time was far quicker. Time was all he needed, positive his eldest would forge his own legend, even without his father attached to him and his accomplishments. Vulkan couldn't be a prouder father. Lion, clearly the better of the two. Ferris, not necessarily for much longer. Vulkan, I have 3 children. Lion, and from what we have seen, one is basically useless for combat. And I'm not talking about the mutant. It was truly a shame that he and Kai would no longer have any more children. Since the last 2 tries had not succeeded, they had decided to stop trying to expand their family and pour all of their love on their current living children. Father. Perrin nodded to him, a small smile playing on his lips. Janan is inside. I would enter with you, but he wants to explain it himself. Vulkan felt his eyebrows rise in shock. Are you sure? Janan wants to see only me. A nod, yes. He wants to explain it himself. Explain? Explain what? Why he has not been home in all these years. Vulkan spoke in a stricter tone, or at least, an attempted one. He could never truly be angry at his children, no matter how hard he tried. Well, he trailed off, it kinda was? It kinda wasn't? He just hoped Janan let the Canid out before their father came in. A little of yes and no. Just hear him out. It's his best work yet, and he's excited to show it to you and gain your approval. Perrin supplied, hoping their father would listen to his baby brother. His best work? So he has been working on something all this time. Oh, you have no idea, Dad. Perrin stepped aside to let his father pass by. When his father entered, he saw that, no, the Canid was still there. He just hoped Janan could plead his case. Inside, Vulkan passed the threshold of the workshop, the place a mess as he immediately came face to face with his youngest. He didn't look very different from last he saw him, which wasn't a good sign at all. He did pass by the family Canid, floating in a fluid without much care. How many times has he told Janan to leave him alone and not experiment on the canid? Vulkan, he's back? Janan. I am disappointed. Sanguinius, with how nonchalant the canid is, this must happen a lot. Vulkan, nu. Dad. Janan greeted him with a nervous smile. Vulkan gave his son a smile and a generous pat on his shoulder. It is good to see you, Janan. Your brother has told me you wish to show me something. I would think you would explain why you have not been home in years. He finished with a slightly stern tone in his voice. Well, Hughgi, just turn around. He had a desperate look in his eyes. I will answer Hani question. He did and had to pause as his Primarch mind took in the notes, the diagrams, the chassis, the fluid. Within seconds, he was putting together a picture in his mind that he wasn't sure how to feel about. Ah! So this is what you have been working on. Yush! My great work! Janan stated confidently, despite his wavering tone. I can see that. Vulkan nodded, working out why his son would make something like this. He already knew why, but hoped it wouldn't be so. And you intend to go through with it, yush! Janan spoke in a determined tone, making his decision all the more obvious. I did the test, they all worked. Vulkan, oh no. Vulkan watched the family canid floating in a container nearby. If it was alive, despite him telling Janan to leave the poor creature alone and to stop killing it, then perhaps his son was onto something. You're positive that you have completely worked it out? Yush, Luke. Janan hobbled over to his work table and scooped up a lot of plastic flimsies before obbling back to Vulkan and handing them to his father. Ivare factor. He then hobbled over to some diagrams hanging on the wall, desperately pointing at them. 56th prototype share. He hobbled over to the dreadnought itself, running an almost loving twisted arm across its chassis. And the final product. Ferris, those plans are incredibly well tested. Perturabo, he has to be thorough, he only has one chance to get it right on launch. Vulkan looked through the flimsies, read all the notes, absorbed all of the diagrams, went over the numbers. Janan really did think of many, if not all possibilities. He knew if this was anyone else proposing this idea, he would have gone along with it. But this was his youngest. Are you positive that it is made from the best materials, perfectly crafted and approved? Yeshdadh. Janan swung around so violently that he would have fallen had Vulkan not reached over and stopped him from doing so. I tried dadh. I tried everything. Tears started coming to Janan's eyes as with increasing desperation he attempted to explain his situation to his father. Noshing buth pain did nothing but pain. He cried, his nose becoming runny as well, causing Vulkan to reach for a nearby rag, cleaning his son's face much like Venus did many times before. I know, Vulkan answered, cleaning his son's face. He hoped time would help him, but if it hadn't this far, then it probably wouldn't anytime soon, or at all. Did he make the right decision? To ultimately have his son entomb himself into his own creation, just so he could live his life? Vulkan, I don't know if I did make the right choice. But I am happy to see that he was able to do something great. So maybe I did make the right choice. Emperor, don't go down that road, Vulkan. The what-if game is a long one and will never end. All these years were just pain for his son. But they were also years of brilliance, years of dedication and years of designing and creation. He was proud of him, even if at times he wondered if it was morally right to keep him going despite all the pain he lived through. I'm not saying no, Janan. Vulkan answered his son after cleaning his face. I'm just wanting to make sure everything will be safe for you. I don't want your creation to have a single mistake, I want you to be sure everything is perfect. Is better than dis. Janan pointed up and down his pathetic body with his gnarled arms, the tears slowly stopping. He hugged his son, careful to not hurt him like others he may have accidentally hurt with his hugs. Then I will support you. Dad, Janan gasped as he desperately attempted to reach around his father's massive waist. Dad, he cried again. Thank you, thank you. Fulgrim, I do believe we might just be witnesses to the rebirth of the century. Conrad, or one hell of a death. Mortarian, no. Vulkan, pardon. Mortarian, by my calculations and experiments written down, especially the ones I can see from here. There is a good chance of him surviving. Very good. He has been preparing both physically and mentally for the entombment. That, combined with all of his other preparations and the quality of the dreadnought itself, the chances are high that he succeeds. Vulkan, I would hug you if you would allow it, brother. Thank you. Mortarion, I won't. And don't, it's just a fact of deduction. Anything for you, my son. He held him tight, not knowing if he would get the chance to do so again. I will be here when you awake. He tried to hug him harder to no avail even as he felt a tear of his own slip out of an eye. How long will it take you? A few weeks share. Vulkan nodded, knowing he had a few weeks to spend with his son before it was over. Then you will come home and see your mother, your sister, and enjoy your time outside. Janan let out a sad chuckle even as he accepted his fate, thankful that all would soon be over. And make sure you let out little noodles over there. Stop experimenting on the canid. Oh, Janan groaned, hesitantly pressing the rune on the control panel for the bubble. Not wanting to explain how this was noodles number 4. He didn't think his father would be able to tell the difference, much less Mother and Venus. Vulkan, what? Son? No. Emperor, well then. Is there something different about noodles? Nashing. Weeks later. 209.M42. Janan and Vulkan stood and watched as the very many cables were plugged into the dreadnought. Janan was already inside of the sarcophagus. The procedure went rather well, despite it taking multiple days of carefully removing body parts and bone structures and then untangling the organs from each other, all the while doing it even as Janan was sedated and submerged in his custom-made amniotic fluid. It was an extremely dangerous procedure. If his heart slowed, if his blood stopped pumping or if he hitched a breath for even a second, Janan would die. That was the nature of the fluid he had made. Vulkan swore that he never saw the apothecaries move with such tender care in their entire lives. Vulkan, pull through Janan. You can do it. Horus, I am sure he can. Conrad, I dash. Sanguinius, don't you dare Conrad. But now came the moment of truth. All of the programs Janan had written were being uploaded into the dreadnought even as his conscience was assimilating with the machine spirit. No one was taking any chances. The dreadnought itself had been sanctified hundreds of times over by the finest of the chapter's tech marines and the master of the forge himself overseeing the rituals. Muggos Lame is muttering incantations himself. Vulkan, I thank you, kind Muggos. But despite all of their preparations, all of their care, something was wrong. Janan, or rather, his new body, refused to boot up. And Vulkan was getting increasingly worried. Vulkan, Janan. Is he no, please, no. Ferris, the integration system must have failed. Horus, how bad is that? Ferris, depends. Vulkan, depends on what? Ferris, on exactly how well Janan programmed the dreadnought's systems. Horus, let us hope he has done enough. Whatever it was, I am sure it was his best. My lord. A salamander begged him again. You must come to the stratagem. The 1,000 suns have transitioned in the system. Vulkan held up a hand. I will stay until my son awakens once more. I have promised. And so they waited. For another whole perilous hour of the tech marines running around, checking all systems and trying everything and anything to get Janan's new body running. Mortarion, an hour to get a dreadnought fully running? Unoptimal. Vulkan, Mortarion please dash. Mortarion, but not surprising. Every single part of the dreadnought is custom made and then artificed. Nothing about will be standard. Especially the code. And Vulkan stayed. He stayed until he heard the fires of battle begin to rage in the far distance. My lord, I beseech you. Another salamander begged as he had been sent by the outer villages. The sorcerers were advancing. And they were advancing fast, burning and destroying everything in their wake. And Vulkan couldn't take that. I am sorry Janan, he whispered even as he turned and ran. Vulkan, son, forgive me. System delay, detected booting input output system error, resetting to backup code 3251 reset, successful booting system bringing user online awakening muscle fibers running containment systems life support, online Janan blinked. Or rather, he did the mechanical equivalent of blinking. Vulkan, he's alive. Oh, thank the throne. Everything was kind of blurry, like he was asleep for a long time. He must be in his room. No doubt Venus would be up in no time to wake him. Wait, he couldn't move. User scan complete, integration. 92.3% complete Oh, how did he forget that? Wow, wait, there was something missing, nothing hurt anymore, this was normal life? Senses online And just like that, he could feel. He felt the gentle warmth of Mount Deathfire's lava, which was exactly 134 meters away. He heard everything, the panicking of some of his brothers as clearly as if it were with his own ears. And then he saw them. Oh wow! Did he seriously make himself this tall? Kind of unnecessary now that he thought about it. Ferris, his sensors appear to be operating as well as they possibly can, impressive. His brothers really did look worried though. Voxcasters online Really? Well, might as well try brothers. The sound of his own voice startled him. So deep and rich and holy I don't stutter anymore. The stupid jaw is gone. He proclaimed happily even as the tech marines stared up at him with apparent awe. Brother Janan. How do you feel? Is everything online? Can you move? A nearby tech marine asked, quickly working to make sure the youngest son of their primarch was fine and able to be deployed as soon as possible. I am fine, still bringing things up, but it will be fine. In fact, I feel awesome. Primary servos online secondary servos online tertiary servos online Ferris, 3 servos systems? Wow, and I thought the weapons were overkill. Vulkan, he has given himself the control and fine motor skills denied to him by his genetic body. I am so proud. Perturabo, not bad. Not bad at all. Lame, by the Omniscia. He is truly blessed. He instinctively waved his massive arms in the air, smashing some rock and causing dust to fall down onto him. Oh, guess I do not know my own height hat. He looked around the room, pleased that everything looked as well and sharp as if he was using his own 2 original eyes. Well, no time like the present to try this. He reached out a leg, and the dreadnought obeyed instantly, causing the leg to raise itself before gently coming down again. Then he did it with the other. And then the other. And then the other. I can walk. He swiftly marched around the room, enjoying actually being capable of moving freely and without much effort by himself for the first time in his life, all the while being careful not to crush his brothers. Corvus, I don't think I have ever seen a dreadnought move so smoothly. Ferris, nodding his head in approval. The servos are complete and utter masterworks. Emperor, your son has outdone himself. Vulkan, pushing back tears. I am so proud of him. Brother Janan, while I am ecstatic that you are able and willing to move, it is imperative you get a grasp on your new body as soon as possible. The entirety of Nocturne is currently under attack by not just Thousand Suns, but parts of the Black Legion and elements of the Dark Mechanicum. The same tech marine quickly spoke, hoping his young brother could fully integrate himself. Vulkan, Thousand Suns, the Black Legion, and the Dark Mechanicum all at once. Magnus, it sounds like it is more than just revenge. All 3 working together, shudders. Janan stopped his pacing and looked down at his brother before looking at the rack where he had been mere moments ago. So you say, he rumbled. Weapon integration systems, online He strode over to the rack, and just to test it, took a nearby bolt rifle from a rack. In his previous form he couldn't even lift one, now it was tiny compared to him. Using his senses along with the new mechanical fingers he took it completely apart in a matter of seconds before putting it back together, cocking the bolt and firing off a shot where it harmlessly hit the wall and detonated. My hands are excellent, he praised his own work, now gazing at the massive power fist gauntlets hanging off of the rack which he had designed for himself. Ferris, that's an understatement if I ever heard and saw it. Emperor, I have not seen such excellent work since the Dark Age. Lion, what of his weapons? Horus, I have a feeling that we are about to see. He stomped over and slid his hands into them. Song of Nocturne, synced Prometheum Reserve, 100% Bane of Armor, synced Fukite Reserve, 100% Gauntlets of Vindication, synced Weapon Systems, activated Rogel, raises eyebrows. A very good assortment. Ferris, almost drooling. You don't say. Fulgrim, are you alright? Ferris, yes. It's just so beautiful. Brother, how much longer will this take? We are needed in the defense. Another tech marine urgently spoke. Every moment they spent here, was another moment they could be defending their home. As long as it takes. The first answered. No, rumbled out Janan. I am ready. He turned with his massive form, looking down at his brothers. Let us kill some traitors. The VID cut to black. The family sat there for a minute or two, stunned into complete and utter silence. Never underestimate the power of a determined inventor. The Emperor finally spoke. I have seen them move quite literally mountains out of pure frustration. With enough time and dedication, almost anything is possible. A double-edged sword of humanity, I'll admit. Kid did good, I have to admit. Angren bit out with a feral smile. I can't wait to see him rip something apart. Hear, hear. Russ sounded off. Going into one of those things willingly, now that takes guts. Mortarion. Vulkan suddenly asked, turning to face his brother and wiping his tears away with a handkerchief. Do you still stand by your words? Mortarion rolled his eyes even as his rebreather let out a long, agitated sigh. Yes, brother. I was wrong. I never once claimed to be an expert on the possibility of prime children, even if all of you keep looking to me for guidance. You happy? Vulkan's smile brightened the room. Yes. Yes, I am. For him.